It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Monday, April 29th. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that is so happy the Phantoms are moving on in the playoffs.
Yeah, good news.
Your Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and I'm a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly game. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. You can find us over on YouTube. We're on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, we finally have a date for the draft lottery to find out for sure where the Flyers will be picking. And it is on May 8th, a Tuesday. I did not see a time associated with it. I assume it's in like the 6 to 7:30 range.
Yeah, I'll be I'll be driving down to Georgia, so I'll be listening to it on SiriusXM.
Yeah, it's just always fun how last minute these announcements are. I get it because they have to time it to the playoffs, but still,
Right. Yeah.
would be like nice to plan. I think that obviously we know the Flyers can only be in the 2 slot and most likely the 12 slot because it's extremely unlikely that anybody below the Flyers will move up.
Right. Yeah, the
And
math
so
is just so bad for them.
yeah. So I mean, and the math is bad for the Flyers. It's 2.5%
Right.
to move up to the number 2 spot. But it is going to be a good draft for the Flyers. They've got 10 picks.
Mhm.
And I think this draft lottery will mostly be rooting for teams we don't want to get the number 1 pick and Macklin Celebrini, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think, there'll be outrage if he goes to Chicago. There'll be outrage if he goes to Pittsburgh. Those are the 2 markets there'll be the most outrage. Like if he goes to Columbus, fine. If he goes to
San Jose,
Calgary,
maybe.
San Jose, any of those places, fine. But there could be some
Yeah,
upheaval.
I think like in the general NHL community, nobody would care if he went to Anaheim, but I think Flyers fans might be a little salty given that that's where Cutter
I
Gauthier is
mean, I'd say focus on
playing, but
something else in life.
yeah,
Yes.
I
You
know.
could be
I
right,
know.
though. You might be right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would actually be remarkable if Utah moved up for that number 1 pick.
Yeah. I mean, that
Because
would be
that would be a
something.
hell of a way to start a new team in a new city.
Yeah, yeah. Though look, they have a lot of draft capital too. So I think they'll be doing some wheeling and dealing because they're going to want to have, come out of the gate hot over there. So I think they'll be aggressive.
Yeah, I think so too. The Phantoms, as I mentioned at the top of the show, have advanced to round 2 of the Calder Cup Playoffs, and I'm so thrilled about this. Game 1 was, a more tightly contested match, but game
Yeah.
2 was absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
So I had been watching the game and it was 3-1, like halfway through the 3rd period. Wilkes-Barre Scranton was ahead, and I was like, oh, I guess we're gonna go to a game 3. And
Yeah.
I was kind of bummed out about it. And then all of a sudden everything happened. So there was penalties on Wilkes-Barre Scranton. The Phantoms got a 5-on-3. It was executed perfectly. We got power play goals from
Well,
Emil
it's good to know that
Andre.
the Flyers have some people that could actually execute a
Yeah,
5-on-3.
I know. It was perfect. They had the 2 guys behind the net,
Yeah.
2 in front, and then 1 right net front. It was just so nice to
They
watch.
didn't do that at the NHL level.
No, they did not. And they made this perfect box that Wilkes-Barre Scranton could not successfully defend. And so Emil Andre scored the
Yeah, that was a
first
nice
of
shot.
really great shot of those power play goals. 25 seconds later, Tanner Lazinski redirects off a really great shot from Bobby Brink. And
Yeah.
I
So
think,
stop it there. So,
yeah,
you know, again, it was a travesty that Lisinski, second leading scorer on the team, didn't even get a game with the Flyers this year. Totally inexcusable, made no sense. And honestly, he should be the leader for the 4C spot next year. He should get a chance at that job, should be up the whole time during training camp. If not, then you might as well trade him because I'm telling you, there'll be teams that'll want him.
yeah, I think, part of it may have been the timing of his injury related
There were
to.
times that we brought up that was
No, I agree. I agree. I think he may have missed out on one time slot of opportunity because of the injuries, but I do think there were other times he could have gotten called up as well. But yeah, he just had a tremendous game. And
he did.
I was mildly worried after the first game, even though they won, because, the big guns didn't really contribute to the scoring
Right.
in that game, but they all stepped up in game two. I
They
thought,
did.
especially in that third period. And, the Pens fought back, went up 4-3, but 30 seconds after that 4-3 goal, Tanner Lazinski scored again to tie it up. Again, taking a huge responsibility on his shoulders, being a team leader. Just a really strong performance by him. And then you have Jacob Gaucher's OT winner off a play with Brendan Furry. It was a really great sequence for the two of them. And that's why I've been saying, like, these are guys that are just solid AHL players and they've been
Yeah.
stepping up big
Yep.
at the later part of the season. And I just could not be more thrilled with how they kind of dug deep at the end of game two.
Yeah, no question. I mean, that was a big time goal. But for Flyers fans that always want to say they never get the calls or the calls are always against them, the Phantoms got away with a few. There was definitely one in the corner, and there was a guy that got tripped right before that goal went in. And so,
Yeah.
you know, it does even out sometimes, and that's why you always I never used to complain about the refs because it would just come around. Like it's just human error. But no, good, really good comeback. Like that was one where you felt like the comeback wasn't even in the cards at that point. So that's good. Now they have a big challenge ahead.
Yeah, and we're gonna preview that series, versus the Hershey Bears in round 2 in depth tomorrow, but, we have game 1 on Wednesday at 7 p.m. in Hershey,
Tough
and,
one. That's a tough one.
I a real tough one, but I do wanna call attention to the fact that we had been talking last week in our series preview for this first playoff round. What were they gonna do on the blue line? Because that seemed to be more crowded, and what
Right.
they decided to do was go 11-7,
Yeah.
which we were kind of railing on for the Flyers this season when they
Yeah.
chose to use that 11-7. But in this case, like, I think, the downside was that Zade Wisdom kinda got boxed out of the
He did.
lineup here, which was unfortunate, but all the defensemen that we were worried maybe wouldn't get in did. So there was
Yeah.
a
From a
cost benefit
development.
to it.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the way I see it. From a benefit standpoint, on the defensive side, that's good. But again, the Flyers seem to only be focused on the defensive side for guys that maybe have a chance early in coming up next year. And that's where I feel bad about some of the offensive players who in each game are going to kind of get boxed out because the Flyers are
Right.
focusing on their defense. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah, but, Addard and Jennings played together, which is what we wanted,
Yep.
and, Andre got in. We were worried maybe he would be the odd man out. They're
Right.
big on Hunter McDonald, who's been playing steadily, and he did not fall by the wayside here, and then they got to give Belpedio and Mete ice time as
Right.
well, which
Right.
which was important, and I think Helge Grans being McDonald's partner has been working out really well. So, I do think they ultimately did the right thing, but there is a cost on the forward side of things, and we
Yeah.
just wanna recognize that.
Yep. That's all. Yeah. I mean, it's just the way it is. But yeah, it's good for those guys. And honestly, Yeah, it's fine. I don't think they're going to bring back Mete and Belpedio, so maybe it'll
No.
change later in the playoffs. But yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and of course, Cal Peterson played in net for both games and ultimately won both games. But I think
So I'm
that
assuming Kolosov's not going to play.
right, right. I think unless there's an emergency
And what have they
or
done with
something,
Sandstrom? Is he just locked in a closet somewhere?
I guess so. I
Yeah,
guess that's what we're looking at.
I don't. We don't
I
even
think
see his name anymore.
I know. I think the only way that Kolosov gets a game is if for some reason it goes to 5 games against Hershey because there is a back-to-back in that
Right.
scenario. But I think that's kinda what's going on with the goaltending situation
Yep.
down there. But yeah, good times are ahead, and, like I said, we will preview the series and what we're facing against this Hershey team on tomorrow's show. The U18 tournament is trucking along with some interesting standout performances by some of the European skaters that maybe haven't gotten enough attention in all of this. And we will talk about some of that coming up next.
It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. I mean, here's a bet that I might make. Maybe Ranger Suarez for Cy Young. Nobody was kind of looking at him, but he's having a great year. What are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/locked on and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Buying tickets to your favorite events like the NHL and NBA playoffs should not be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace for the NBA, which means getting those playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. They've got killer last minute deals, all in pricing, views from your seat, and with their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying those coveted NBA playoff seats. My favorite part of the Game Time app is it's great for getting notified about those last minute flash deals. And they let you save even more with zone deals where you pick a section, let Game Time choose the seat, and you get all in pricing as well. So there's no surprise fees at checkout. Your tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through email. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We will be answering your mailbag questions later in the week, so get them in. Email us at lockedonflyers@gmail. Send us a message on Twitter or comment over on YouTube. So, Russ, the U18s are trucking along, and I think that some of the results are as expected with the United States and Canada having strong performances
Yeah.
so far in this tournament, and with a couple Americans leading the scoring right now.
No shock. I mean, Cole Eisman, he's always going to score. So we just thought it'd be better to highlight some of the Europeans right now because the US and the Canadians are getting all the press. A lot of 2025 guys are getting the press, which is fine, but I just don't want to do too much looking ahead either.
Right. I would say though, like obviously Finland is having a really good tournament so far as well. As of recording, they have they have not lost yet in the tournament. And they have a couple of guys kind of leading the way with scoring, one of whom we've talked about in Consta Hellenius, but we
Yeah.
haven't talked about Emil Hemming.
Right. Hellenius is to me a guaranteed top 5. So I just
Right.
would leave him alone. But Hemming's one that honestly has fallen, I think, since my last list. I know you've included the list on some of the links so people could check it out. Around 22, and so this tournament could get him to ease back up into it. I wanted to see more consistency. He's scoring. The goal scoring's there. The points are there. He's 6'1". He plays hard. He plays a good two-way game. He's a good player. You just don't want to see these dead spots, sort of like dull times for him. But otherwise, I do really like him. I've liked him all year. I've never moved him out of the first round.
Yeah, I think that's something that's been, interesting for us trying to think about that second pick, right?
Yeah.
And like with some of these guys that you're not really sure if they're late first round, because some of them, you look at their rankings and look at scouting and you're like,
Hmm.
he could go late first round, but also could go late second round. Like you just
Yeah.
never know.
Right.
So like where do you see Hemming in that
I think,
continuum?
I don't think the Flyers will have a shot at him unless they trade up. I think it's more possible to trade up beyond the 20s in this draft than to get in the 10s, right? So I
Mhm.
think that, if they like Hemming and they've already acquired a defenseman, maybe that's what they're going to do. I mean, again, some people won't like it because he's a right winger, but I think he's a guaranteed NHLer. It's just a matter of how much impact will he have.
Right. Well, he is somebody we will keep an eye on. You brought up Alex Zetterberg, no relation.
Right.
Why did you wanna talk about him in this tournament
Well, I mean, I
specifically?
watched him in the Five Nations and he intrigued me there. Most people have him kind of pegged as like a third rounder. I think he might be working his way into the second round, though. He's having a good tournament. He's showing playmaking abilities, good skating. He's got a great shot. He's not the biggest guy. I think he's like 5'9", but man, he's a very
Yeah,
effective guy out there. And honestly, you don't really notice his lack of height because he's just so involved in the play. So I think he's
yeah.
just been a terrific player for Sweden.
Yeah, and he's been playing in the, U20 league
Yeah.
in Sweden and had 58 points in 45 games. That
Yeah.
is not too shabby.
Yeah. He's just not going to be a center. Like if he gets it, makes it to the NHL, but like the fact that he has that ability is good. And the fact that, yeah, he's ripping up the J20 means next year he'll move up. All these things are good. So it's like at some point, somebody's going to bite at him.
Yeah, talk to me about Jet Luchenko.
Yeah, Jetlichenko for me is just sort of coming into focus. We've talked about him on like our EP ringside meetings, but this tournament's been really good for him. He's getting,
Mhm,
he's always around the play. He's a good skater. He's smart. Uh, with a pretty stacked Canadian team, he's managing to pull a few highlights. So I think that's good, and he's getting on the board. So I think that helps him. I think he's still mostly a second rounder, but you never know. Never know. By the end of this tournament, he could, be like a bottom of the first round kind of guy. It's possible.
and then on the defensive side of things, Tomas Galvas.
Yeah, Galvis is an interesting one. Most people have him pegged for somewhere in the middle to late second. Uh, he's good, man. He skates well. He's smart. He's safe up the ice. He has
Mhm.
offensive ability. He's good all around, and he's very wily out there. And so I do think, just the way defense is, if there's a secondary run on defensemen in the second round, I think he'll get swept up in that.
Yeah, that's interesting. You talk about like a second wave of defensemen going in that time period in the draft. And I did check in with our friend Jay over at Locked On Columbus Blue Jackets, and he's like, "Yeah, they're keeping the pick." So
Yeah, we figured that.
yeah, but so the Flyers will have that compensatory pick, and that's kind of where they would pick a guy like that. We do have one third round pick, but which is actually to me going to be one of the most interesting picks of the draft for the Flyers.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. But just like people saw recently with the NFL draft, I mean, Galvis is never going to hit the third round. Some think he still could get it in the bottom of the first. I think again, if there's a big run on defensemen, there's going to be a big run for the top 10, could be as many as
Mhm.
6. And then if there's another run, let's say, I don't know, like in the 22s or something, maybe he gets swept up in that and it starts going through the second round. It's possible because there's just such a emphasis now on defensemen, and there are some good ones in this draft. It's just there's not that many top pairing guys. Those are the ones that are going to go early. These are the can this guy be a 3, 4, or instead of 5 or 6? But you need them too.
Right. So he plays in Czechia, and
Hmm.
I'm just wondering how you compare those developmental leagues in Czechia versus a Sweden or Finland when you're looking at the Euro players.
Yeah, Sweden and Finland are still the gold standard. Sweden being higher, I think, and then Finland, and then you could group the rest together. Uh, I think the positive is most of the time when they're playing in those other leagues, like Galvis is, they're playing against some older players, so that's good. Uh, I believe that Sweden and Finland, have more levels, so that makes it a little different. So like that J20 in Sweden's really good, but it's not like the SHL for obvious reasons, right? So
Right.
yeah, so I think we I think those other ones are kind of like at that next level, after the SHL, after Liga, you want to throw the KHL in before the SHL or right after the SHL, that's fine too.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. All right, well, we'll continue to keep an eye on this tournament. Later in the week, we'll look at the medal rounds and preview those. It is the off season for the Flyers, which single tear down the side of my face. But one thing we did last off season, which we're going to bring back, is have a weekly poll for y'all out
I like
there.
that.
So we're gonna have our first weekly poll question for the off season, as well as our nemesis of the week coming up next.
All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk about more Monopoly Go. I I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You've already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you could team up with friends for timed tournaments where you could work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. There's so much to get. Unique stickers you could trade with a friend to compete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you want to win or your rent freezes. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now on free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on.
All right. In addition to the U18s, we still have those OHL playoffs running, and the London Knights with Bonk and Barkey are in the Western Conference Championship right now in those playoffs. So we'll check in with them later in the week as the series continues. Our listener poll this week, which we will find on our YouTube channel, we'll put a link to the poll in the show notes as well. What is your biggest priority for the Flyers this offseason? Your options are going to be drafting well, signing key free agents, and managing the cap and contracts. And of course, there will be another option. If you have another thought that's your top priority for the Flyers this offseason, you can put that in the comments of the poll post over there on YouTube. Again, link in the show notes. Looking forward to your results, and we'll talk about them later in the week. Our nemesis this week, well, last week we talked about not being jealous of the playoff teams as those series continue and being prepared for this long off season and being patient that it will take time to get to where the Flyers need to go with all the various machinations. We talked about the draft lottery earlier in the show. And I think, so far, so good. I think I'm somewhat mad at the New York Islanders for extending that series in that double overtime
Mm-hmm.
win. But, what are you going to do? I'm enjoying the Leafs drama, at least. I
Oh
think
yeah.
that's been fun. Um, I think the nemesis this week, of course, has to be the Hershey Bears, given the Phantoms playoff situation. And one thing, we are recording this before the Sunday game between the Rangers and Capitals, but things are looking pretty dire for ye old Washington Capitals. And I worry that when the Capitals get eliminated, they're going to send down reinforcements to Hershey, so it's going to
Yeah,
get
like
even
Connor
worse
McMichael
for the
might go
fan.
back, and yeah, there
Yes,
could be some good players.
I know that is the horrible thought that is looming over my head as related to the NHL playoffs and how it affects the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. So that is my nemesis this week.
Yeah, my nemesis is don't poke the bear. But I'm going to say that in real life and in hockey. But really for real life, because bears are coming out of hibernation and people want to take pictures. And I'm going to tell you, you are an idiot if a bear is in the same frame that you're in for a picture, you're risking your life because they're fast on land and you don't know what they're going to do, and it's just idiotic. You know what? If you have to take a picture from your car and you zoom it, that's great, but at least you can get away. But I'm just saying, do not take pictures or get close to bears. It's not smart.
So this is hilarious because I'm going to go out on a very short limb and say that you, Russ, who are not internet savvy with what the youth are up to these days, and you are not aware of the full-on man versus bear discussion happening on the
No, I
internet
am not.
at the moment. So I'm gonna explain it to you. So just the question has been going around, mostly TikTok, about if you know, as a woman or if you're a man and you're saying your wife, your daughter, your cousin, whoever, a woman you care about is alone in the woods, would you rather them be there with a man or a bear? And everybody is saying bear because bears are at least predictable, and men are not. And so I
Wow.
like, yeah, but it's terrifying. It is a terrifying
Sure. Yeah.
commentary
Yeah.
on the state of things
I'm not
these
going to make
days.
light of it. I get it.
No, it's horrific, and I think that you bringing up actual bears was, just chef's kiss kismet related to that
Well, I
conversation,
really
which I
stepped
kn
into it, I guess, as they say.
you did, and I knew you knew nothing about it
Yeah.
from jump,
Yeah.
and that is why I was like, "I think you should know about this
Okay.
conversation that is
I'm
happening
aware
that is
now.
happening." Yeah. So, I mean, the correct answer is bear. And there's like even people who have been attacked by bears who are saying, yes, the correct answer is bear.
Wow.
So I think that, uh, yeah, but
Very telling.
hopefully, yeah, all we have to worry about is losing hockey games from the Hershey Bears. That is much more mild compared to
Yeah,
that
that's a lot
other
less heavy. I'll tell you
discussion.
that. Yes.
Oh my god. All right. So that will do it for today's show. We will be previewing that series in depth on tomorrow's show. And as a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got mailbag questions or just thoughts about what you want us to cover this off season, you can send them to us via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail or comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Have a great day, everyone.